Think about it. Today, America is the richest, most powerful country in history. But here's the crazy part. Its rise to the top was never supposed to happen. In fact, it was totally unexpected. For over 100 years after Europeans first stumbled upon it, most of North America was pretty much just ignored. So, yeah, that's the big question we're tackling here. How on earth did that happen? How did a continent that was basically a global sideshow become the home of the most powerful nation the world has ever seen? Okay, let's get into it. The whole story of America really starts with a mistake. The first Europeans who showed up weren't looking for a new continent. Not at all. They were just trying to find a shortcut to the incredible riches of Asia. So you've got Christopher Columbus sailing west, hoping to hit the jackpot with a new trade route for valuable spices. He didn't find any spices. But when he got back to Spain and told the king and queen about the gold he saw, well, their whole game plan changed. Instantly. Suddenly, this wasn't about trade routes anymore. It was all about treasure. But here's the key thing to remember. All the real action, all the gold and silver, all the huge empires to conquer, that was all in Central and South America. So that's where Spain pointed all of its power. And North America? They checked it out, but when they didn't find any obvious riches, they dismissed it. They basically called it useless lands. Just this massive, empty sideshow. So for like 100 years, Spain had the New World all to itself. But, eventually, other big players in Europe, like France and England, started thinking, hey, maybe there's something to those so-called useless lands after all. And that, right there, set the stage for a huge showdown for the entire continent. By the mid-1700s, it really came down to two main rivals. The British colonies, kind of huddled on the coast, and the French territory, called New France, which covered this huge inland area. But heading into a war, it wasn't even a fair fight numbers-wise. The British colonies had over 1 million people. New France, a tiny 60,000. That massive population gap was going to be a game changer. And, well, when the dust settled, the British had won. And it was a huge victory. France had to give up Canada and all its land east of the Mississippi River. Just like that, the map of North America was completely redrawn, and Britain was, without a doubt, the new boss of the continent. But winning created a whole new kind of problem. The British colonists, the very people who helped win the war, suddenly found themselves in a huge fight with their own government back in England. Something totally new, something revolutionary was about to happen. Okay, so wars are expensive, right? To pay for this massive war, Britain started slapping new taxes on the colonies. And the colonists were furious. Their whole argument was simple, but it was powerful. Hey, how can you tax us if we don't even get to vote for the people making the taxes? And what started as a disagreement over money just snowballed into protests, then fights, and finally a full-blown revolution. Now, here's what's really wild. Declaring independence in 1776, that was the easy part. After they actually won the war in 1781, the new country was, and honestly, it was a total mess. Their first attempt at a government was a complete disaster. The 13 states were basically acting like 13 different little countries, always bickering, and the whole project was on the verge of collapse. It really wasn't until 1789, with a brand new constitution, that the United States we know today actually started to take shape. So, with a government that actually worked, this young nation started looking west. And what happened next was this wild mix of smart deals, just plain dumb luck, and some pretty aggressive moves. Meanwhile, across the pond in Europe, you've got Napoleon. And Napoleon is doing what Napoleon does, fighting wars. And wars need money, lots of it. He had this massive chunk of land in America, the Louisiana Territory. But it was just getting in the way of his real plans for Europe. So, facing another war with Britain, he does something nobody saw coming. He offers up the entire Louisiana Territory to the United States for just $15 million. It was the real estate deal of the millennium. I mean, with the stroke of a pen, this unexpected country literally doubled in size. Just like that. And that incredible deal was only the beginning. The next 50 years were just this absolute sprint to the Pacific Ocean. First, American settlers in Texas decided they didn't want to be part of Mexico anymore, so the U.S. brings Texas into the country. That move sparked a war with Mexico, which America won, and in the process, took California and the entire Southwest. Finally, they made a peaceful deal with Britain to draw the northern border up in the Oregon Territory. I mean, think about it. From the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean in less than a single lifetime. Incredible.
So the country now stretched from sea to shining sea. But there was this huge, dark problem, bubbling just under the surface, ready to tear the whole thing apart from the inside. The nation was about to face its biggest test yet, a war against itself.
The issue, of course, was slavery. And there was no middle ground. You had the North, which was becoming more industrial, slavery was illegal there, and more people saw it as a terrible moral evil. But in the South, which was mostly farmland, the entire economy was built on the brutal system of slavery. So when Abraham Lincoln got elected, the Southern states panicked, convinced he would end slavery for good. And the whole thing just exploded into war. The Civil War was the deadliest war in American history. But when the North won, it did two absolutely huge things. One, it freed the nation's slaves. And two, crucially, it cemented the idea that the United States wasn't just some loose club of states that could leave whenever they wanted. It was one nation, permanent. Forged in the fire of that war, a new, unified, and rapidly industrializing America started to look beyond its own borders. The days of just expanding across the continent were over. A whole new chapter was beginning, one about global power. And you can see this new way of thinking perfectly in the debate over annexing Hawaii. On one side, you had the original American ideal, we should be a just nation that doesn't throw its weight around. But on the other side, you had the practical strategic argument, which was basically, look, if we don't take Hawaii for its naval bases, some other country like Germany or Japan will. It was a real battle between the country's ideals and its growing interests. Well, interest won. The Spanish-American War basically saw the U.S. take over places like Puerto Rico and the Philippines, pretty much ending Spain's old empire. Hawaii was officially brought into the U.S., locking down that vital naval base in the Pacific. And then you had President Teddy Roosevelt showing off America's new industrial power by building the Panama Canal. The message to the rest of the world couldn't have been clearer. America is here, and it's a major player now. So, from an ignored backwater to a continental nation forged in a brutal civil war, that unexpected rise we've been talking about, it was pretty much complete. As the world entered the 20th century, a brand new question started to pop up, not just for Americans, but for everybody. America was now a superpower. So, what was it going to do next?